Hello guys, so today I'm going to show you how to create a simple Slack bot with Deta macros. Our bot is not going to do anything fancy, it will just send new users a direct message on Slack welcoming them to the workspace. So we'll use Python to write the logic and we'll be using FastAPI as the framework. Our bot will need to do two main things. Firstly, know when a new user has joined the workspace, and secondly, send the new user a welcome message. So let's start firstly by creating a new Python FastAPI micro. I've created a directory called slackbot tutorial. I'm going to create a main.py file. I'm going to leave it empty for now, and then also create a requirements.txt file to specify the dependencies. So I'm going to add FastAPI and requests as the two requirements. FastAPI requests. FastAPI is the web app framework, and requests in order to talk with the Slack API. We could have used a Python client for Slack's API, but there will be only like 2 API calls, so I did not want to add another dependency to the application. Now let's create a new Python micro with Deta. The Deta CLI figures out that the micro has a Python runtime and installs the dependencies from your requirements file. Okay, with that deployed, now let's create our Slack bot on Slack. Head over to api.slack.com and click on your apps and create a new app from here. So give a name, tutorial app, and the workspace, I'm going to use the tutorial workspace that I've created. So you land on the basic information page. We'll need the details on here a bit later. So the first thing that we need to do is know when a new user has joined our workspace. In order to do that, we'll use Slack's events API. So go to event subscriptions and enable the events. We need to specify a request URL where Slack will send the events. So let's get the URL of our deployed micro and put it here. You can use data details to see the details about your micro. Let's copy this and put it here. As you can see, Slack needs to verify that you own the URL. For that, Slack sends a challenge token, and in order to verify that we own the URL, we need to send that challenge token back to Slack. So let's add a post route in our application and send the token back to Slack. So in our main.py file, we will add the logic. So what I've done here is add a post request, and then we're just returning the challenge back to Slack. So let's deploy this. If you look at data details, it says HTTP auth is enabled, so Deta enables authentication automatically on your routes. So we need to disable it for this particular application. Deta auth disable. So HTTP is disabled, and now let's retry it on Slack to see if it works. There we go, we're verified. Now we'll subscribe to bot events. Now if you look at the events API documentation, let me just open that. So if you look at the events API documentation, we can see that the event we need to subscribe to is the team join event. So it says a new member has joined. So if you look at the expected scopes, you'll see users read as the required scope. So Slack APIs are scoped. You'll need to provide specific permissions or scopes to a bot to allow it to talk with the respective APIs. So let's go ahead and add the team join event subscription. Let's go to event subscriptions, subscribe to bot events, and add team join subscription. So when you subscribe to an event, Slack will automatically add the required scopes for you. And let's save the changes. That's great. It says success. Now for security, Slack sends an HMAC signature for integrity and authentication, and it's calculated from the payload of the request and a shared token. The shared token can be found in your application's basic information page under credentials. This is the shared token. So let's go ahead and copy the token and use it as an environment variable. So I'm going to create a .env file and I'm going to call it secret token and paste the token here, and then I'm going to update the macros environment variables with data update. It says successfully updated macros environment variables. So now we're going to add the logic for validating the signature. So let's see how Slack creates a signature first. So if we look at the documentation, authentication, and then verifying requests, you can see that Slack calculates their signature by creating an HMAC digest of a base string using the secret key. The base string is composed of the version number, which is always v0, and the timestamp header, and the raw request body. So let's verify that the requests are coming from Slack. Create a utils file, and then let's add the logic to verify the signature. So I've created the utils.py file with a couple of methods. The first method is calc signature, which calculates the signature from the version, the timestamp, the body, and the secret token. The secret token we take from the environment, and it calculates the hex digest of a HMAC SHA-256. That is what Slack uses. And the base string is a concatenation of the version, the timestamp, and the body. And another method is authorized, which firstly checks the timestamp in order to prevent replay attacks. With the timestamp, the replay window we're allowing is a minute, and then it compares the signatures that we've calculated and that has come from Slack. Now let's add the code in main.py to use this. Looks good. We deploy what we have. Great. So in the main.py, I'm getting the timestamp from the header, the signature, and the raw body, and then I'm seeing if the request is authorized. If not, I'm sending a full one back. Otherwise, I'm just sending an OK for now. Great. Now that we've verified that the requests are coming from Slack, let's look at the team join event. So if you look at the team join event, you can see that the type will be team join and the user information will be given under user. So let's go ahead and just add the logic to ignore other events. So I've updated the main.py file to ignore other events if the event type is not team join. Let's deploy this. Awesome. Now we know when a user has joined a channel. So the next step is to send the user a message. In order to do this, we'll use Slack's web API to send the user a private message. So if you look at the APIs, web API. So every message is sent in a channel in Slack. So we'll need to create a channel between our new user and our app and send a message on that channel. So if you look at Slack's API, we have to make two requests. The first one, to open a conversation with Slack's conversations.open API. So opens or resumes a direct message or multi-person direct message. So if you look add the required scopes. We have 4 scopes that we need to give our bot in order to talk to this API. So let's go ahead and do that. So the auth scopes we need are channels manage, groups write, I am write, and MP I am write. So channels manage, groups write, I am write, and MP I am write. Okay, so we added the 4 required scopes, and then we have to post a message to the channel that we create with Slack's chat post message API. And if you look at the scopes, we need only one scope, chat write. So we'll go ahead and give that scope. There we go. So we've added all the required scopes needed for our bot app. So the first thing we need to do is now install our app to our workspace in order to get the auth token for the workspace. There we go. We have a bot user auth access token that we'll need to make this request. So let's go ahead and copy this token and put it in our .env. This auth token, and then update the macros environments. Great. Now what we'll do is write a simple Slack client in order to make these 2 requests. Let's create a file called client and add the required code. So I've created a simple Slack client that will init with the root of Slack's API and the auth token from the environment. So I've added 2 methods, one to open the conversation and secondly to post a message into the conversation. And if you look at the conversations open API, it will require the token. So the authentication to Slack's APIs, web APIs, you have to provide the token, the payload. So it will require the token and then the users. And for the post message, similar, the authentication is through the token, the payload. You'll need a channel ID under channel and the message you're sending under text. So what I've done here is define these 2 methods that do both things. Okay, now that we have a client, let's use the client in our main.py file in order to grab the user ID when the user joins the workspace and then send the user a welcome message. So I've updated the main.py file, we've imported the Slack client and we've instantiated it. And then the first thing we do is get the user ID when the user joins the workspace, and then we open a conversation with that user, we get the channel ID back, and then we send a message with post message on that channel with our message. And with Slack you can use the user ID directly in your message in this format or syntax, and Slack will translate the user ID to the username. So let's deploy what we have. And that's it. So I'm going to add myself in this workspace under the account. So add teammates. This is my work account. I'm going to send an invite, and then I should get a message back. Slack says join the conversation. I already have 2 accounts there, so let's continue with Google. So let's create the account, and I should get a message from our bot. Let's go to the browser, and there we go. as you can see, we have a message from our bot saying hello, I was Resta, welcome to our workspace. And that's all, folks. With Deta, we wrote and deployed a very simple Slack bot in very little time. If you want to check out the source code, I'll link it in the description. Thank you for your time.